Business will come to order. Today we're having a hearing on growing small business exports and growing U.S. jobs. I know my colleague Senator Risch will be joining us, I'm sure, as well as other colleagues, but we've been urged to get started and we're going to do that today. So I welcome all the witnesses here. We have a very distinguished panel and I thank them for making time to be here on such an important issue. And I would like to make sure that everybody understands that my colleagues who aren't here can still add their comments and statements for the record, which we will be keeping open. U.S. exports are an engine of economic growth and job creation. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. exports have accounted for a third of overall economic growth in the U.S. in the last 5 years. Last year, more than 11 million jobs were tied to U.S. exports, 1 in 3 in the state of Washington are related to international trade. 95% of the world's customers are outside of the United States. And as the middle class around the world continues to grow, it's going to expand from 2 billion today to nearly 5 billion by 2030. So exports represent a huge economic opportunity to create jobs right here at home. At the same time, less than 5% of our country's 28 million small businesses export. And the U.S. small businesses that are exporting, 58% of them are exporting to only one country. So there is a lot of room for growth. And one way to continue to help the U.S. economy is to create U.S. jobs, is to help make sure that these small and medium-sized companies look at export opportunities. For me, this is one of the highest priorities of this committee. I know the ranking member, Senator Risch, and I have had a chance to talk about these issues in our respective states, Washington and Idaho, and hear from small business people about their interests. That's why we are introducing a bill to reauthorize the State Trade and Export Promotion Program, better known as STEP. The Export Promotion Program has been an important tool for small businesses to begin exporting and expanding new markets. It was first authorized in 2010 as a pilot program through legislation from this committee, and under the program, the U.S. Small Business Administration works with states so that they can prioritize help to small and medium-sized companies. The STEP programs help businesses identify the opportunities and to take action to break into new markets and expand their exports to these foreign markets. STEP to date, which is based on an annual state report, projected that it's resulted in $909 million in export sales, representing an average return to the federal government of federal investment, I should say, of 15 to 1. Those same investments for STEP in the state of Washington have, on average, returned an investment of over 51 to 1. So that's how much business has been generated by just a very, very small amount of investment to these businesses. Jeff and Tony Logza, brothers of Slingshot Sports, turned the company they started in the Columbia River Gorge into a global brand for water sports equipment. The company used an export assistance from this program and working with Department of Congress to gain access to new global markets. They were able to shift their manufacturing back from Asia to the United States and create more jobs for this very rural community. Another example can be found in a Seattle software company called Has Offers, which utilized the STEP program to showcase its product to mobile application developers. As a result, Has Offers is now working directly with 4 of the largest ad agencies in the UK and Europe. Eric Hahn is also with us today. Eric is the Vice President of Organizational Development and General Plastics Manufacturing in Tacoma, Washington. STEP has allowed General Plastics to gain access to new European partners, and will tell us more about that in his testimony. Through these programs, we've been able to establish a physical presence, meet customers, research competitors, connect with vendors, develop new relationships, and these are very important things when it comes to growing small business. They will show that you can make a small investment and turn that into a large business opportunity. So this bipartisan legislation builds on the success of the pilot program and creates a permanent state trade and promotion program within the SBA to help these small businesses continue to export. We have received several letters of support authorizing the STEP program, and so I'd like to hearing no objection, enter them into the record. That is the Arkansas Governor Mike Beebe, North Dakota's governor, and a letter from Washington's Governor Jay Inslee, and a letter from the Council of State Governments. In addition to Mr. Hahn today, we're going to hear from Donald F. Tyler from New Hampshire. Welcome, Mr. Tyler. He is the director of Corfin Industries, and Corfin Industries provides component preparation services to a variety of industries, including the defense, medical, and telecommunications industry. Welcome. Using the STEP program, he was able to help the company expand into new markets, and since using STEP, the company has grown its international revenue from about 1% to 12% of its overall business and hired 10 new employees. So we look forward to hearing more about that. We also have Bob Campbell from Virginia. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Campbell is president and CEO of Alliance Solutions, and it is a client of Virginia Small Business, the Small Business Development Center. Alliance Solutions out of Newport News provides crisis disaster management services to support public safety and private sector clients. And Mr. Campbell's company has received, through the Virginia Economic Development STEP program, resources that were used to help understand the market in the Middle East and their ways of doing business and refine his strategic planning. Additionally, we have Mark Calhoun from my home state of Washington, who is the senior director at our Washington State Department of Commerce, and he's going to talk more directly about how this program works with various businesses within the state. And we also have Jennifer Verdon from my colleague's state of Idaho, and she works in a similar capacity with their Idaho Department of Commerce on these STEP programs. And finally, Mr. Dan Hendrix, CEO of Arkansas World Trade Center and at the University of Arkansas, and he will discuss how Arkansas has utilized the STEP program to support small businesses in his state. So we're so pleased that you're all here. We're so excited about where we are, having been through the pilot stage and the incredible results that have come back. Now we want to capitalize on this opportunity, and so we look forward to your testimony. I ask you if you can keep your comments to 5 minutes. You can submit something longer in the record, but then that'll give myself and others who show up a chance to ask you all questions. So I believe we're going to start with you, Mr. Hahn. Again, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Chair Cantwell. I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and the members of this committee. On behalf of the STEP program, as was stated earlier, my name is Eric Hahn. I'm the Vice President of Organizational Development at General Plastics Manufacturing in Tacoma. I'm also Chair of our Tacoma Pierce County Workforce Development Council and Vice Chair of the Washington Aerospace and Advanced Manufacturing Workforce Pipeline Advisory Committee. Said that in one breath. The company, General Plastics, started in 1941, actually a couple of days just prior to Pearl Harbor, and started as a plastics company, obviously, in a whole different vein. It's grown in the last 73 years to be a leader in the polyurethane world, and we provide products not only to aerospace but defense, nuclear containment, marine, construction, outdoor signage, and tooling as well. We also employ about between 170 and 180 people. I say between because we are fast growing, and a lot of that is because of what we're doing here in this country, but a good part of that has to do a lot with the STEP program and what the opportunity it gave for us to enter new markets. As the committee considers creating a permanent STEP program, I want to share our experience that we had with it, because I think that it is one that can serve as a model for other small companies to not only engage in international opportunity, but to grow beyond just the parameters of their own backyard. In recent years, we've been trying to get into the European market to no avail. Admittingly, I don't think we really understood what the requirements were and how those differed than the aerospace requirements here in this country. A lot of that has to do with FST, fire, smoke, and toxicity requirements that are a little bit different in Europe. Through the grant provided by STEP, we were able to go to the JEC Paris 2013 and 2014 Air Show and also eventually to the Aircraft Interiors Show in Hamburg. It was at JEC that we discovered what the requirements were for aerospace products in that country. We were able to look at what our competitors were doing. We were able to talk directly with some of the people that were in the aerospace industry in Europe, and they helped us give us some real insight into what the requirements were and how we were going to have to change things. So immediately when we got home, we started putting our chemists back to work to really refine our products so it would meet those standards, and they were successful. In fact, at the Hamburg Air Show, we introduced those products and had a lot of interest because of it. Our goal was really fivefold. First, we were going to establish a physical presence, which we did. Second, we were going to meet existing customers, which we did. Third, we were going to research our competitive products, which we did. And fourth, connect with local vendors, and finally, of course, develop new relationships with potential customers. The results were, again, we were able to develop a product that is compatible with the standards that the European Union requires. We were able to get 2 distributors, one from UK and one from South Africa, and we're in the final negotiations with one from Spain. We were able to also add approximately $100,000 in new sales initially. It doesn't sound like a lot, but consider the aerospace sales cycle is anywhere from 6 months to a year. Here's the really exciting news. We're now in negotiation with Airbus Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers, and those are estimated to provide anywhere from $1 to $2 million in additional sales. It'll also mean the employment of 10 to 15 new people. And by the way, Senator, I want to personally express, my gratitude for all the work that you've done with veterans and workforce and especially aerospace. We are very happy that you're our senator. We've utilized those tax breaks, and we are able to hire a lot of veterans. In fact, we now have, in the last year, hired probably an additional 15 to 16 people that are veterans. So all of this is just indicative of the opportunity that was available through STEP and that we were able to access. Our Washington people helped us out immensely as well to connect and understand how we were going to be able to access this program. This program provided opportunity for us as a small business that, quite frankly, I don't think we either would have never thought of accessing or would have been a long time coming. In the aftermath, we have now hired a international person that is a marketing director from a fairly large company that is really helping us take what opportunity we had from this program and really develop it so that, in the future, I think we may not be a small business after all. Thank you.
What a great story. Thank you. I'll look forward to asking you questions. Mr. Tyler?
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to testify today. I'm Don Tyler, Director of Corfin Industries, a company that has enjoyed significant growth in export sales over recent years as a result of our participation in the STEP pilot program. Corfin's robotic hot solder dip and other services satisfy the electronic component preparation needs of high reliability systems such as missiles, space satellites, and implantable medical devices. While these industries are well established outside of the U.S., for the first 20 years in business, Corfin experienced very little non-domestic business. The only orders that came to us from outside of the U.S. were from subcontractors to our existing customers. 3 years ago, cautiously encouraged by those few orders, we explored paths to actively selling into these markets. Unfortunately, the costs were high, as were the risks. Large trade shows, which are our best hope for reaching a sizable portion of our target audience, are prohibitively expensive to a small company. We considered collaborating with other U.S. small businesses with a common goal and willingness to share expenses, but that required a major commitment of resources to identify and coordinate with these other businesses and just missed as impractical. Corfin turned to New Hampshire's International Trade Resource Center and the U.S. Commercial Services local office They not only educated us on the skills necessary to break into markets outside of the U.S., but Corfin received matching funds through the STEP pilot program to realize affordable marketing opportunities. Corfin's STEP-funded participation in air shows in the United Kingdom, France, and Singapore, and Gold Key service introductions and translation services through U.S. embassies in Munich, Rome, and Tokyo have provided the jumpstart necessary to gain a foothold in these markets and grow independently. The success of our international sales encouraged us to become charter members of the New Hampshire Aerospace Defense Export Consortium last year. It was another STEP grant recipient. The consortium provides great value in all matters related to exporting, including speakers on customs issues, education on changes to ITAR, and marketing opportunities. The growing membership in this consortium is a great indicator of growing global impact of New Hampshire businesses. Today, Corfin's non-domestic sales is a significant component of our overall growth. International sales increased from less than 2% of our overall revenue 3 years ago to over 12% today, all while expanding our overall revenue almost 30%. The non-domestic growth corresponds to 22 additional full-time employees. I think information from earlier this year said 10, which the chairwoman mentioned, but it's 22 as of today and still growing, a direct result of the STEP grant funding. I'm pleased to report that Corfin will be exhibiting at the Farnborough United Kingdom Air Show next month without the benefit of STEP funding. I enthusiastically support the Step Up for American Small Business Act for the perpetual opportunities needed by small American businesses to reach global markets and grow their American workforces. This is a program that works.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler, and it's so great to be corrected from 10 jobs to 22. Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
Chairwoman Cantwell, Ranking Member Risch, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify and holding this hearing on the State Trade Export Promotion Program. As a graduate of the STEP program in 2013, we've positively benefited from the program and in successfully entering the export market and growing our business internationally. I'm Bob Campbell, founder and president of Alliance Solutions Group, or ASG, a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business out of Newport News, Virginia, with 10 satellite offices around the U.S., including your home state of Washington. As of February 2014, we've successfully launched an office in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, to extend our services into the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. ASG prepares communities for various threats through emergency preparedness activities and environmental health and safety services. We've conducted environmental health and safety audits for the United States Air Force worldwide and have trained thousands of military and public sector responders on chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and hazardous material response, with approximately 2,000 training and exercise events. As defense and federal spending among our customers has declined and our vision to prepare communities and improve worker health and safety has increased, we've sought access to markets with expressed and unmet needs, economic capacity, and adequate infrastructure to support sustained growth of our business. Exporting enables us to share our expertise, experience, and values in a way that provides a value-added benefit in other nations. Our services promote development, security, and prosperity while increasing U.S.-based revenue that we can reinvest in our employees and development of innovative products and services. In 2010, I made my first attempt at exporting by attending the Special Operations Forces Expo in Amman, Jordan. My lack of understanding of the market at that time, the regulatory environment, presence, lack of persistency and funding limited my ability to capitalize fully and enter the market. In 2012, we've included international growth in our strategic plan and began to identify obstacles to entry. The most significant obstacles to market entry for our business have been, number one, a lack of local presence, two, navigating the regulatory environment, both U.S. and foreign, in regards to export compliance, tax-related, financial and security issues, and number three, limited financial capacity to invest in exhibitions, marketing, travel, and legal consulting. Now that we have entered the market, new obstacles are emerging. First, price disadvantage due to both low labor costs among competitors and tax treatment disparity between U.S.-owned and foreign entities when operating internationally. And second, the challenge of assessing potential partners with the right due diligence and engaging in contracts in a way that adequately protects our interest. The complexity and multitude of risks involved are daunting for a small business that requires extensive legal counsel. Fortunately, we've had help along the way from the Virginia Small Business Development Center and the Virginia Economic Development Partnership in the form of training, resource networking, and grant funding. Through the Virginia SBDC, we participated in the Passport to Global Markets program in 2012 and then promptly enrolled in the STEP program. The STEP program assisted us with approximately $20,000 for a trade mission to the UAE, market-specific conference and exposition participation, and development of our export compliance program. Through STEP, we've been introduced to other businesses, professional resources, and the U.S. commercial services abroad. In addition to the STEP program, we've also benefited from the Going Global Defense Initiative, where matching federal and state funds from the program enabled our business to become certified in quality, environmental, and occupational health and safety management systems, a significant competitive advantage for our small business like us, as these 3 international certifications garner significant credibility in the global environment. We continue to reap the benefits similar to STEP program through the Virginia Leaders in Export Trade program. And in April of 2014, we were awarded our first international contract in Kuwait as a result of attending that 2010 Expo in Amman, Jordan, as well as support from the STEP program. Reauthorization of this program will help enable more U.S. businesses to establish the products and services abroad, creating more jobs, generating more revenue and investment, promoting economic development abroad, as well as goodwill. Thank you again for inviting me to testify and for your commitment to helping small businesses with international trade and export.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. We'll look forward to asking you some questions as well. Mr. Calhoun, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Chairwoman Cantwell, Ranking Member Reich, and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify on state-level experiences and work with the STEP program. My name is Mark Calhoun, and I manage the Washington State Export Promotion Program. I also serve on the State International Development Organization Board, CITO. States play a key role in helping small businesses start or expand their international sales. State export promotion programs are typically an integral part of a statewide economic development strategy that delivers a range of support and services to small businesses in order to drive economic growth and create jobs. The state of Washington has provided export promotion assistance to small businesses since the late 1970s. We are a very trade-oriented state, the 4th largest state exporter in the U.S. We work closely with our federal partners in Seattle to coordinate resources and provide the best service to small businesses. Our office is co-located with the U.S. Export Assistance Center, Ex-Im Bank, the SBA Export Solutions Group, and the Export Finance Assistance Center of Washington. The STEP program has played a valuable role in helping small businesses expand export sales, and I'll use some examples of our activities and results in Washington to show how important STEP is for small businesses. By way of background, Washington received a total of $3 million in STEP funding to date. With STEP support, we provided export assistance to 446 small businesses, resulting in an increase of $136 million in actual export sales and $276 million in forecasted export sales. The results underscore the critical importance of federal funding to Washington's export assistance program for small businesses. The STEP grants received by our state help fund successful new initiatives such as our export voucher program, export promotion in India for the first time for Washington State, and participation in a series of targeted industry trade shows in Europe. Participation and results from these and other STEP activities are on target to generate a potential return of more than $135 for every $1 of STEP funds, and actual returns were $45 to $1. Has Offers, which Senator Cantwell mentioned, is a great technology early-stage company in Seattle that tracks the effectiveness of e-advertising campaigns. And I wanted to give just a quick update on their export activities as a result of STEP. In late 2011, they had not engaged in international sales, but at that point realized their opportunities being a web-based service provider. They came to us to talk about how they could get into the Europe market, and we gave them an export voucher, which enabled them to go to a key trade show in Barcelona called Mobile World Congress and join a group of other Washington State technology companies in attendance in February of 2012. That resulted in first-time export sales for the company, which now represent 40% of their overall business, and allowed them to grow from 50 employees in early 2012 to 190 employees today. As Congress considers the reauthorization of the STEP program, I'd like to add my support to some key recommendations from CITO. Firstly, that STEP should become a permanent federal program. Second, to ensure collaboration, there should be a member of the state promotion agencies on the Trade Promotion Coordination Committee. It will be nearly impossible to develop a coordinated state-federal plan without a seat at the table. Thirdly, we need to develop a working group to coordinate information sharing and report metrics to make sure Congress receives information it needs in a timely manner. Return on investment is a priority for states. We'd like to ensure that the federal share of funding in the STEP program stays at 75%. And lastly, we'd like to encourage that you make STEP reauthorization and agency coordination a priority in the current trade agenda. In conclusion, I'd like to make sure that we don't take our focus away from the key objective of STEP, that small businesses are critical to the economic success of our country, and increasingly international markets are vital to the growth and prosperity of small businesses. Exports create and support above family wage jobs here in the U.S. and are a critical component to the ability of small businesses to compete and grow in the global economy. I appreciate the invitation and time with you today and look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Calhoun. And now we'll hear from Ms. Verdon. Thank you for being here as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Campbell and Ranking Member Risch, for providing me and with that the state of Idaho to testify today on the benefits of the STEP program. And also I would like to thank you for your efforts in trying to secure permanent export funding for the program. My name is Jennifer Verdon, and I'm the manager for the International Business Division at the Idaho Department of Commerce. My team's main focus is to support Idaho's small and medium-sized Idaho companies in their export efforts. For the first time ever, commerce companies, and with that I mean non-agricultural companies, had the opportunity to receive export funding through the STEP program since 2011. The impact of STEP in Idaho is very significant. Small companies in Idaho are the backbone of our economy. And according to the SBA, they create more net jobs than any large or medium-sized companies. 96.8% of all employers in Idaho are small companies. 280,000 jobs are supported by small businesses in Idaho. To illustrate further how small our companies are, 75% of these small businesses have less than 20 employees. On the trade side, exports and imports support 190,000 jobs in Idaho. Given that 80% of the world's purchasing power lies outside of the United States, it is extremely important that small businesses diversify their customer base if they want to stay in business and continue to grow. Now that I painted a picture of the small business environment in Idaho, the question remains, why do we need funding? Why do we need the STEP program? The short answer is that exporting is more costly, it's riskier, and the sales cycles are much longer, meaning it takes longer to find partners and to find customers and to close the deal. A lot of small companies simply can't take the risk or build a marketing budget to fund their exports. The state of Idaho has received STEP funding from the SBA for 2 years, and we have submitted the grant proposal for the 3rd year. In year 1, we received $292,000, and of that, we used 47% for subrecipient grants. In year 2, we received $405,000, and of that, we used over 89% for subrecipient grants. Other activities funded through the STEP included trade shows, government-led trade missions, inbound buying delegations. All these are activities that are part of our usual suite of services, but with the STEP funding, we are able to provide more opportunities and more activities to small businesses. The results of STEP in Idaho are a testament to the success of the program. In 2 years of STEP, we have funded 110 companies. Over 18% of these companies were new to exporting, and 72 companies used the grants to break into new markets. The ROI of year 2 is 35 to 1, which translates into $12.7 million of actual export sales. In my written testimony, you can find 2 examples of Idaho companies. Right now, I'm going to just talk about one company due to time. Wild Touch Taxidermy is one of many examples that would have not been able to expand internationally the way they have if it hadn't been for the STEP program. Wild Touch Taxidermy is a small family-owned business, and as the name gives away, they prepare, stuff, mount, and sell animals, all kinds of animals. Their exporting interest was awakened when my team arranged for them to meet with Taiwanese buyers. However, in order for companies to close the deal and find partners, it's essential for them to travel. This wouldn't be possible for Wild Touch Taxidermy if it wasn't for the STEP grant. Just recently, Wild Touch Taxidermy, their owner, traveled to China with a gold key, and when he returned, he already had a sale of $30,000. That's an ROI of 12 to 1 in the first week of his return, of completing his project, and he's still negotiating sales. In closing, I'd like to point out that less than 1% of all U.S. companies are exporters. We cannot not support exporting. Education and export counseling are necessary components, but without the funding, a lot of companies can't execute. Thank you again for this opportunity, and thank you again for promoting permanent exporting.
Thank you, Ms. Verdon. Appreciate that. We'll now turn to our last witness before questioning. Mr. Hendrix, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. It's a pleasure to be here and distinguished members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before this committee to tell you some real stories about how the STEP grant program has been beneficial to the state of Arkansas. I am Dan Hendrix. I'm President and CEO of the World Trade Center Arkansas, and we are the designated trade organization for the state by the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. And because of that, we have been the recipient of the state STEP grant funds for the first 2 years, approximately $886,000. This enables us to help the Arkansas small to medium-sized companies, and I emphasize that, as the other testifiers have, that it is very important for our small to medium-sized companies to have the benefit of the STEP funds because of the resources that they do not have for their businesses to expand in exporting. Our rate of return for the STEP grant has been approximately 40%. We have assisted over 45 Arkansas companies, and those companies have reported thus far over $28 million of increased export business over the last 2 years. Now, we know that the time frame for trade execution is sometimes long, so the residual effect of the STEP money that we have provided these Arkansas companies will be ongoing and long-lasting, because it takes sometimes 12 to 16 to 18 months to execute a trade deal and to get revenues flowing. So it's important that this program continues, not only the 4th year, but on, and hopefully permanent funding. Several companies that we have assisted have added jobs, and many of those have retained jobs, because it's important not only to add jobs, but also to keep those jobs. The trade promotion activities, we do outbound trade missions. We also have inbound trade delegations coming in, and this is important because these companies have been able to benefit from the Gold Key service through the Department of Commerce. And a lot of times these companies would not have gone on these trade missions. They would not have attended these trade fairs or these trade shows without these funds being available. It's just a simple matter of economics. And so with that, we have helped our Export Assistance Office in Little Rock to be to benefit from the STEP money too. So this money actually has gone back into the Department of Commerce funds by utilizing the Gold Key service. We have also established the Arkansas chapter of Organization for Women in International Trade, which is growing significantly. Also, the FIT program, which is the Forum for International Trade Training. These gentlemen and the lady have also talked about how important education is, and it's important that we help these companies to understand what it is to be in the export marketplace. And that way, this trade training that we offer through Export University, through the Export Assistance Office, through SBA, and through XM Bank is very important. The impact and value of STEP funding is certainly measurable. I think all here at this table have certainly reiterated that it is a measurable opportunity, and the statistics will speak for themselves. The small to medium-sized companies that we've talked about continue to miss global opportunities. And there's 4 things that a STEP grant really helps to do, and 4 things that are very important to exporters, and that is evaluating the market potential, and to evaluate market entry constraints, evaluate market competitiveness, and to seek distributors and agents. The STEP grant helps provide opportunities for all of those. Again, thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Much, Mr. Hendrix, and that was very well said. I like the way both you and Ms. Verdon categorized in very specific terms the risk factors involved in trade. So thank you. Thank you both for that. I'm going to turn to Ranking Member Risch for a statement if you'd like to make it, and then we'll start questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I join you in welcoming all of our guests here today. This is certainly an important endeavor for the Small Business Committee. I think that most Americans are aware that trade business is important. I think probably what they're not aware of is how difficult it is for small businesses to do this. If you're a big company, you have an army of lawyers and consultants and what have you to help you do this, but for a small business, it is very, very difficult. I think secondly, something that most people really don't realize is how important it is, particularly in targeted industries, to participate in trade shows and trade conferences that go on in different parts of the world if you're going to offer your products and services in that regard. And again, it is prohibitive in most situations for small businesses to participate in that. Yet we've seen through this pilot program how the returns have been very substantial for investments that were made there. So I'm happy to be a participant with the chairman as we move forward with trying to get this program on a better track than it is. I think everybody hears about the toxicity back here and how nobody's working together. Well, the chairman and I are both all in on this program, and the only issue that we're trying to resolve is the funding issue, which seems to be the one that divides us on everything. But nonetheless, having said that, we have a good general agreement, I believe, on how this should be done, and we've got our very competent staff working on finding the funds to do this, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to do that. So thank you, Madam Chairman. Back to you.
Well, thank you. And again, I want to thank Senator Risch because we have been working on this. I think you and I see eye to eye on how important this is. And I don't know if that's a Northwest perspective, being, so focused on trade, our 2 economies. But your leadership has been very helpful on this, and I certainly enjoyed going to Idaho. And I thought one of your business leaders said it best when he said, exporting is not for wimps. And I think that what he meant was that you need to have, a real stomach to go and approach these market opportunities. So we had a lot of good testimony from people from both our states.
Yeah, we did, Madam Chairman, and again, I'm not familiar with every state what they do in that regard, but certainly Idaho through the Department of Commerce and the state of Washington, the things I've heard, they're also all in on the efforts that we're making here, particularly for the small businesses, and we thank you certainly for those efforts.
Good. Well, let's turn to some questions, and I did want to follow up on, trying to characterize the benefits of the program in specific terms. Obviously, as my colleague just said, we see the benefits of it very clearly in our states, but maybe not all our colleagues do. And so, you've clearly articulated that there are risk barriers to trade, mostly that, Ms. Verdon, you talked about high costs, high risk, obviously very small marketing budgets, and the smaller you are, the less experienced team of people, to assess those opportunities. So, Mr. Hahn, the first three of you and Mr. Hendrix, I wanted to see if we could get some comments about whether you were exporting, how did you, is this just the impetus to make, I was in business and I can just tell you, you focus on shipping, building and shipping products. You focus on that. You've got to get the product out the door. So is this just, the STEP program is just providing that extra incentive that is helping businesses focus on this? Is that what it does? It just breaks down that risk barrier?
Senator, I don't know if it's necessarily. I guess here's my feeling on it. I think what the STEP program does is that it allows us to take our dreams and formalize those into actions. As was stated earlier, we didn't have a lot at our disposal in terms of technical expertise, in terms of money to actually go overseas. We were doing very well at home, and we're actually very satisfied. Because Boeing being one of our largest customers, we thought we were very content. And I think when we were approached by this program, that all of a sudden, I think it just turned the light bulb on, and as I said earlier, it allowed us to take those dreams, because we had already always talked about, someday we were going to go overseas, someday we were going to be this great exporter of materials. And as I think this gentleman said earlier, we were doing some international, but it was coming through distributors that were based in the United States, that were actually selling to people overseas, and they were utilizing our products in the mix, but we never saw the actual end customer, and we never really engaged in that actual end customer. And so this program opened that door. It allowed us to not only see and talk to that end customer, but to create a relationship that ultimately culminated in a very strong sales pipeline.
And so you would have just waited till a later point in time to create an export strategy, or it just gives you the ability, you had one in mind, but you just you didn't have the resources to execute on it?
We didn't have the resources to execute on it. And as I said, yes, to answer your question, we would have probably just waited. We would have looked at, for secondary opportunities through companies based in the United States that were doing business overseas, and probably would have been content with that for a while. But gladly or thankfully, this program came along, and I think we're not only jump-started our efforts, but I think we're doing great because of it now.
Good. Mr. Tyler, Mr. Campbell, either of you want to add to that?
Certainly will agree with it. We had an export plan that really had no timeline that went with it. We knew that if we wanted to do something like an air show or a large trade show, that would be a $14,000 ticket just to get in the door, and then we'd have travel expenses, and then we'd really need to have some representation over there to follow through. And those are all high dollar and high time involvements. And we really didn't know what we were doing, so we needed some help from professionals, and of course they needed funding. I spoke that some of the help that we had from the New Hampshire International Trade Resource Center is partly also a result of the STEP funding. So we were going to get nowhere probably without this. Of course, this brought the cost down significantly for us to get in the door, and at the time we were maybe 60 people when we really started kicking off. We're about 120 now, and as I've said, about 22 of that is from the export sales that we do today, and that's something we now really can't afford, and that's why I was happy to say in my testimony that the things we're doing today are not requiring continued STEP involvement. So a success as I see it.
You're a STEP graduate.
There we go.
Mr. Campbell?
Echo those comments, but I'd also add that the STEP program accelerated our path to entering the global market. I tried it on my own in the past. It took a little bit of effort to try to get there, and I could tell that it was going to take a lot longer without some type of help from professional resources and the networks from our state VEDP and SBDC, the things that they've put in place for us, the training, the other resources. So it's not just about the money. The money's the means to the end. But as an entrepreneur, I'd like to take that money, invest it into the business, and see the business grow. And we've already started to see some return on investment in short time.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Senator Risch?
I'll yield to my distinguished colleague, Senator Shaheen.
Thank you very much for holding this hearing and for the effort to reauthorize the STEP program. And I want to welcome Don Tyler from Corfin Industries in New Hampshire. I've had the opportunity to visit Corfin, and I have seen the impressive services they provide to so many industries, and really hear firsthand about the difference that the STEP program has made for you all. And I think you pointed out that you've been able to add 22 additional employees as the result of the program, which I think is very impressive. And it speaks to the importance to small businesses and why we need to provide this assistance for exporting. You know, one of my favorite statistics is that 95% of markets are outside of the U.S., but only about 1% of small and medium-sized businesses do business outside of the U.S. So that says it all when it comes to why this program is so important. Madam Chair, before I ask my questions, I just wanted to enter into the record a letter that I received from the program manager of the International Trade Resource Center of New Hampshire, which speaks to the importance of the STEP program and also the concern about the match percentage, which I know has been under discussion. But for small states like New Hampshire, being able to maintain the 25% state match is really important because we have fewer resources, fewer employees who can help our small businesses. So I would like to enter this into the record and just point out that one of the statistics she cites in this letter is that in 2013, New Hampshire actually had the highest percentage increase in exporting in the country, and how important the STEP grant program was to making that happen. And that one of the real benefits we were able to accomplish through the program, which Don, you may have spoken to in your testimony before I got here, is the Aerospace and Defense Export Consortium, because that has provided a real opportunity for so many businesses in the state. So if I could enter that into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you very much. So, Don, I wonder if you could talk about, you talked about the number of employees you were able to add as the result of the exporting that you've done. Can you also talk about how STEP helped in terms of building relationships with future customers and how you see that playing a role in your increased exporting?
Certainly. The previous efforts we had made to try to get into export, mostly Europe, had been speaking engagements at technical conferences. And, of course, that's a once-a-year event, and you can persuade somebody that you've got a great product, but if you don't really have a presence there, you're quickly forgotten. And I think that was our biggest issue, is we needed to be there more often. We needed to have representation. The goal of, or the effort of trying to find representation was a little beyond us. We really didn't know where to start. And again, the International Trade Resource Center and the commercial service, the U.S. Commercial Service that did the Gold Key service, that was our primary goal with those Gold Key services, was try to find good reps. And we succeeded in the UK, Spain, France, and Italy so far, and we're still looking in Germany. So by having those folks there, of course, in the same time zone, so when somebody wants to pick up a phone in the morning, they're able to talk to somebody other than waking me up on a mobile phone, and I'm a little groggy. But they're having that familiarization. They're having people that come and visit them once a month and talk about new developments that are happening back at the factory. We take those reps to our factory so that they keep educated on what we're doing as well. And of course, all that business does come into New Hampshire. None of the services are actually performed outside of the state of New Hampshire.
And can you may have said this in your testimony, but how much have you seen your export growth expand since getting the STEP grant and really making a full-blown effort at exporting?
I think we saw about 1.3% of our overall revenue was from outside of the U.S. in about 3 years ago, and now we're 12 or 13%, and that is growing at a nice rate. But what's more important is that isn't 12 or 13% of the same overall revenue. The overall revenue has grown 30% in that period of time too, so we're doing pretty good. But that's a big part of it right now, and I'm confident this time next year I'll be bragging about some big things that are in the works right now.
Good. Well, hopefully we can get this reauthorization done, and that will help.
Please.
Mr. Calhoun, you mentioned the importance of cooperation between state and federal entities in helping small businesses export. A couple of years ago, my colleague from New Hampshire, Senator Ayotte, who was at that time on the Small Business Committee, and I hosted a hearing of the committee in New Hampshire, and we heard from New Hampshire businesses. And that's one of the things we heard from officials in our trade office in New Hampshire and from some of the small businesses, is that there would be real benefit to having more cooperation at between states and the federal level in trade initiatives. You talked about putting, I think what you said was putting a state person on some of the federal committees. Is that what you're suggesting?
The solution we came up with in Washington was in our office in Seattle is to co-locate with the U.S. Export Assistance Center. We have an Exim Bank representative in Seattle. We have an SBA Export Solutions regional manager, and then a Washington State Export Assistance Center. So we're all co-located. Those companies can speak to this. I think we overwhelm them with material, and they're confused, I think, oftentimes about what all these different programs are, what's the best one for them, where should they fit in. And I think when we can coordinate all of our efforts and put it together, we formed a Washington Export Outreach team last year in our state and launched our first event on Monday this week. So we're starting a series of day-long Export 101 programs around the state that all of the state and federal agencies are coordinating on and participating in, again, to try to lessen the confusion for small businesses on which door is the right door.
Thank you. As the result of the hearing that we held in New Hampshire, we introduced some legislation called the Small Business Export Growth Act. And one of the things we would create as part of that legislation is a working group on the Trade Promotion Coordinating Committee to identify ways that would improve coordination. We've had some success in New Hampshire with co-locating, although because of a loss of state resources, much of that has disappeared and is being rebuilt now. But do you have any thoughts about whether this kind of a working group might be helpful in recommending more ways to cooperate? And if anybody on the panel wants to weigh in on that, feel free to do so as well.
And one of the CITO recommendations is actually to try to add a state-level person onto the Trade Promotion Coordination Committee, which we think would be vital to try to get that true federal-state partnership. That without a seat at the table, it's hard to get the level of coordination. Right. So that would definitely be one recommendation we'd support.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Risch, would you like to ask questions?
I'll get back. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think it's been a great hearing and again has underscored for us the importance of this program. Looking forward to everyone on the committee working together to try to make this work.
Great, thank you. Well, I have a few more questions from some of the testimony, my colleague has brought up this issue about state and federal match, but also there's an issue of whether the program should be allowed to be spent over 2-year period of time as opposed to 1 year. And I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that. Maybe the people at the, yes, Mr. Hahn.
Yes, Madam Chair. You know, as I spoke earlier, the aerospace selling cycle is fairly long. I think that having it spread over 2 years would be highly beneficial. I mean, it would not necessarily that maybe maybe it was not necessarily critical in our case that it be, you know, that we have that second opportunity, because I think that we did have grant money for that to go that second year as well. But what that demonstrates, I think, is that because of the sales cycle, that if you're able to not only make that initial contact and then sustain that relationship and build upon that relationship by being able to attend subsequent shows, I think it'd be highly beneficial.
Mr. Campbell, did you want to add to that?
Yes, Senator. I think also think it would be beneficial to have a 2-year program. In my testimony, I mentioned 2 other programs that are also helping our business. So we graduated from STEP, and then we entered 2 other programs within the state of Virginia that have helped us not just with funding, but with networking of other resources, getting us in contact with other entities, performing some services like getting our ISO certifications. We're also now reserved with a Virginia exhibition booth or that they'll have at a major conference in the Middle East next year, and we'll be part of that. So at a fairly discounted rate. So it helps us financially, but it also helps us with credibility that we're going to be showing at a major exhibit with the state of Virginia and other businesses. So a two-year timescale, I think, is beneficial, especially in these markets where, for instance, we're looking at Saudi Arabia right now. And it takes six months to a year from the time you make the decision to get started and you make the application to set up a business there to the time you may even hear back from them. That doesn't include the time it may take to find the right partners to enter into some agreement with, which could be a long-term agreement. And so a 2-year program certainly would be beneficial for entering the market, but then we also need to think about sustaining once the business is there. What are the next challenges that a business may face?
Okay. Yes, Mr. Hendrix.
At the end of the grant, second-year grant period, we had over 15 Arkansas companies that had, qualified companies that had applied for STEP grant funding. And, of course, the money has to be spent and allocated before that year was up. So having a possible 2-year spread would enable us to possibly have given some of those 15 companies some of the funds where we were trying to push and get that money out the door. So I think that a 2-year program would be beneficial, I think, for us as an administrator of the funding.
Okay, and Mr. Calhoun mentioned metrics. So how do we get, is that something we have, or that's at SBA, or we put more teeth into what states have to do? How do we get better metrics? I mean, many of you have provided great metrics, but obviously we want to learn from this, and so what's the recommendation?
I think having a 2-year program would be beneficial on the metrics side. You know, we heard that the sales cycles are longer. So right now we're only reporting on 1 year. If we would be collecting results from step year one, we would actually have higher numbers because some sales just don't come in the first year. They take 2 years to close that deal. I think we're doing a great job in collecting the results. It's a matter of defining what we need to be collecting. If we want actual sales, no problem. We can collect actual sales. Estimated sales, we can collect estimated sales, but you know, there's a question of how valid are estimated sales. We would rather collect actual sales.
Well, somebody on this end, I think, mentioned forecast sales, which I think what they're basically, most companies have very prudent booking of sales forecasts. You know, even if they close a big deal, they'll book that over several quarters or several years just so that they guarantee that it'll actually come in. And so I don't know if somebody down here mentioned that or wants to comment on that, but I think from an accounting purpose, someone believed that those were actual sales. Is that correct? No one remembers who mentioned forecasting. Somebody gave me a number on actual sales and then forecasted
Yeah,
sales.
I did, Senator. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, no, the forecasting was really projecting what the potential for this several deals that we have in the offering now that we're currently negotiating. You know, that though the money that comes in is going to be significant. We just don't know what it is right now because we don't know what the volumes are going to be. But that's why I made the comment that we're looking at additional $1 to $2 million, depending upon, you know, what kind of volumes they start out with, and ultimately, you know, if those volumes are sustained. We have every confidence that just because of the way aerospace works, that once you're spec'd into a product, you know, it's pretty hard to lose it unless you lose it yourself, you know, through poor quality or performance. So we anticipate that $1 million is conservative, and that the $2 million is likely or potentially likely, and then who knows where it will go from there.
Okay, great. Senator Sheen, do you have any?
I just have one more. One of the things that it's been pointed out to me is that oftentimes when we're exporting, or when you are exporting, you're competing against other companies that have subsidies from the governments where they exist. And that one of the things that STEP does is help to level that playing field in a way that is really important to our small businesses. And I just wondered if anybody had had that experience as with companies exporting, that you know your competition overseas is getting a subsidy in some way from the country where they operate, and what kind of a challenge it presents.
Well, I don't have a lot of details, Senator, but I do know that it exists, and I think I mentioned in my testimony also some disparities or differences in tax regulations of treatment for companies like ourselves. So that exists, so we have to find other ways to compete and work around that, to compete more on value and the product and the service that we're providing, knowing that we're going to be higher priced. The good news for us is that we're in a market where they love U.S. companies, so that helps a lot. But now I need to stand behind that with the quality of the services that we provide and show the value that makes up that difference so that I can compete competitively.
Thank you. And that's one of the real benefits of STEP, is that it helps you offset some of that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Well, I want to thank all our witnesses. It was a great discussion. We appreciate the hard work that you're doing in helping our country grow jobs, and we certainly want to help thank the representatives of the various agencies at the Department of Commerce at the local level. Thank you for your work on all of this, and we look forward to moving this legislation and making it an ongoing program so we can continue to grow exports. But thank you all very much. We appreciate it, and we're adjourned.